He was the slowest animal in the forest. But now he is the busiest. While others slept, he worked. While others rested, he raced. But then he crashed. And this is the story of how burnout almost broke him, and how he found peace again. Have you ever met someone who just can't stop? Like, no matter what's going on, they're always pushing, always grinding, always trying to tick off one more thing on their to-do list? That was Tortoise. Now, Tortoise isn't your average slow-moving, easygoing kind of guy. Not anymore. Once upon a time, he enjoyed long naps under the sun, slow walks by the riverbank, and quiet evenings with a book. But somewhere along the line, something changed. Maybe it was the pressure to keep up. Maybe it was seeing all the other animals sprinting ahead in life. Or maybe, deep down, Tortoise just didn't want to be seen as slow anymore. So he flipped the script. Big time. He became the definition of hustle. While others were sleeping, he was planning. While they were lounging, he was working. He was building things, projects, businesses, reputation, results. He'd created checklists for his checklists. The kind of guy who wore, "I haven't slept in 3 days" like a badge of honor. And for a while, it worked. It really did. Everyone started looking at Tortoise differently. No longer the slow one. No longer underestimated. He was the achiever now. The one everyone came to for advice. "How do you stay so focused?" they'd ask. "What's your secret?" Tortoise would smile, tired but proud, and say something like, "Discipline, consistency, no days off." First, it sounded cool, motivating even, but as time passed, those words began to haunt him. You see, the thing about running nonstop, even if you're technically walking, is that eventually something starts to wear out. Not just your body, your mind, your spirit. It sneaks up on you like shadows lengthening at sunset. Tortoise didn't notice it at first, or maybe he did, but brushed it off. The small things, like how he used to enjoy his morning tea, but now it tasted like cardboard. How conversations with friends started to feel like interruptions. How even victories felt empty. But he powered through. He told himself he was just tired, that it was part of the grind. "This is what success looks like," he muttered to himself, eyes burning under the fluorescent glow of his desk lamp. But deep down, something wasn't right. Then came the day that changed everything. Tortoise was on his third meeting of the morning, his fourth cup of coffee, and his sixth attempt to write an email that just wouldn't come together. His shell felt heavy, heavier than usual, and not in a physical way. It was like every step, every word, took extra energy to form. He rubbed his temples, blinked at the screen, and tried to push through, again, until he didn't. He froze mid-sentence, hands on the keyboard, brain just blank, like someone had pulled the plug on his thoughts. Not even static, just silence. And in that silence, something scary settled in. Burnout. Now, nobody ever says they're burned out at first. Feels like defeat, like admitting you're not strong enough. But the truth is, burnout doesn't care how tough you are. It doesn't care how many hours you've worked, how passionate you are, or how badly you want it. Burnout comes for us, especially the best of us. Tortoise leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. For the first time in a long time, he had no words, no plan, just a quiet question echoing in his mind. When did I forget how to rest? It's funny, isn't it? How rest, something so simple, so natural, can become a forgotten art in a world that worships productivity. Like we've been tricked into believing that rest is laziness and hustle is holiness. But rest isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Tortoise didn't know that yet, but he was about to learn. Later that evening, he found himself walking, no destination, just movement. He passed the old park bench by the stream where he used to sit. It was dusty, forgotten, like a memory buried under tasks and deadlines. He sat down, not because he had time, not because he planned it, but because, for once, he just stopped. And in that stillness, he listened to the soft breeze rustling the leaves, the distant laughter of squirrels playing, the quiet hum of the world continuing without him. And in that moment, Tortoise realized something that hit him harder than any failure ever had. He didn't know how to be still anymore. That scared him. Because what was all the success for if it cost him the ability to enjoy it? What good was a full calendar and an empty soul? That night, Tortoise didn't open his laptop, didn't check his messages. He didn't even set an alarm. Instead, he took a deep breath, curled into his shell, and for the first time in months, he let himself rest. Not just sleep, rest. The kind of rest that says, You're allowed to pause. The kind that whispers, you don't have to earn your breath. The kind that reminds you you're human, or in this case, a tortoise. But you get the idea. And as his breathing slowed and his thoughts quieted, Tortoise made a silent promise to himself. I can't keep going like this. I need to figure out a better way. A way to live that doesn't burn me out. He didn't have all the answers yet, but for the first time in a long time, he'd asked the right question. And that, my friend, is where change begins. You know what's wild? Most people don't realize they're burning out until they've already crashed. It's like driving a car with the engine light on, thinking you'll just keep going a little longer until the car stalls in the middle of the freeway, and you're stuck, exhausted, and wondering how you got there. Tortoise was on that freeway. The signs were there, clear as daylight, but because he was so busy, he missed them. At first, it was the chronic fatigue. You know the kind, you sleep 8 hours and still wake up tired. You try to push through the day, but your body feels like it's moving through molasses. Every task feels heavier than it should. Tortoise thought he just needed more coffee. More power through attitude, wrong. Then came the emotional exhaustion. He wasn't just tired physically, he was numb. The things that used to bring him joy, like building new projects, helping others, or even just talking to his friends, they felt like chores now. Conversations drained him. Deadlines stressed him out more than they used to. And joy? That feeling was slipping through his fingers. He brushed it off. Tired, not broken, he told himself. But his shell was cracking. Next came the irritability, a classic burnout symptom. Little things set him off. A minor typo in a report. A missed call. A friend texting him, "Are you okay?" He snapped at that one. He hated himself for it, but he couldn't help it. That's the thing about anxiety triggers. They creep in silently, and when you don't have the emotional bandwidth to manage them, everything becomes a threat. Every email, every notification, every expectation. One morning, Tortoise sat at his desk staring at his screen. He was supposed to write a simple proposal. Normally, it would have taken him 30 minutes. But that day, he just couldn't. His mind felt foggy, like someone had pulled a curtain between his thoughts and his fingers. But then, his first real mental breakdown happened. He closed his eyes. His heart was racing, his breath shallow. His hands trembled just a little. He couldn't think clearly, and a part of him wanted to scream or cry or just run away. He didn't tell anyone, but inside, he was falling apart. That's the brutal reality of work-induced burnout. It doesn't show up like a dramatic explosion. It arrives quietly, like a slow leak, draining your energy, your motivation, your mental health. And when you finally notice, you're already empty. Later that week, Tortoise skipped his regular tasks. He didn't go to his morning meeting, didn't answer calls. He just sat on his porch, staring into space. It wasn't that he didn't care. He cared too much, and that was the problem. He was overstimulated, overwhelmed, and dangerously disconnected from himself. And the scary part? He didn't know how to fix it. That evening, Owl came by. Wise, calm, observant. Owl didn't say much. He just sat beside Tortoise for a while, watching the sunset. After a long pause, he finally spoke. "You don't look like yourself." Tortoise forced a smile. "I'm fine." "No, you're functioning," Owl replied. "There's a difference." Silence. Then Owl said something that hit harder than Tortoise expected. "You've been running on empty. That's not strength, Tortoise. That's survival." Those words sat with him. Running on empty. How many of us do that every day? We think pushing through makes us strong, that asking for help makes us weak, that rest is earned through suffering. But burnout doesn't reward effort. It punishes neglect. Later that night, Tortoise Googled something he never thought he'd search. How to know if you're burned out. The results were staggering. Signs of burnout, constant fatigue even after rest, lack of motivation or fulfillment, detachment from work and people, physical symptoms, headaches, insomnia, tight chest, feeling helpless, trapped, or defeated. Tortoise sat back. It was like reading his diary. He had been ticking all the boxes, and the worst part? He had ignored them, because no one talks about it. Not really. There's this dangerous myth that success means pushing harder, sleeping less, being everywhere at once. But the truth is, success without mental wellness is a slow collapse in disguise. The next day, Tortoise made a decision. He canceled all his appointments, turned off his phone, He walked into the woods, somewhere quiet, where he could breathe. For the first time in months, he gave himself permission to do nothing. And in that silence, he whispered something to himself. I am not okay, but I want to be. That was the beginning, not of fixing everything overnight, but of acknowledging the truth. And in mental health, self-awareness is the first real step to recovery. Because here's what nobody tells you. Burnout is not a badge of honor. It's a red flag. And until you pause and listen, that flag just keeps waving. There's a moment in every burnout journey where something shifts. Not dramatically, not loudly, but like a gentle whisper in your soul saying, this can't be it. Tortoise heard that whisper. And for the first time, instead of pushing it away or drowning it out with productivity, he listened. The silence of the woods, the pause from his routine, gave him a sliver of clarity. He didn't need another to-do list. He didn't need more hustle. What he needed was healing. But healing isn't a destination. It's a practice. So, Tortoise did something revolutionary, something we all forget to do when we're drowning in pressure. He slowed down, like really slowed down. No email, no just one more task. No checking notifications to feel productive. Just presence, stillness, breath. And guess what? That's where he found the beginning of self-care. Not the Instagrammable kind. Not spa days or scented candles, though those are nice. But the core of self-care. Choosing yourself without guilt. Tortoise started simple. Morning walks instead of morning deadlines. Deep breathing before reacting. Journaling his thoughts, not for likes, not for content, but for clarity. He picked up a notebook and wrote 4 words. What do I need? That question hit different. Because for so long, his life had revolved around what others needed, what the world expected, what success demanded. But now, he is relearning how to tune into his own needs. Then the answers came slowly. He needed rest. He needed connection, not just with others, but with himself. He needed boundaries. He needed to feel safe inside his own body again. And so the self-care journey began. Mindfulness was his first tool. It started with 5 minutes a day. He'd sit outside, close his eyes, and focus on his breath. Inhale peace, exhale pressure. First, his mind wandered a lot, but that's okay. Mindfulness isn't about perfection. It's about awareness. Soon, he began to notice something. His stress levels were dropping. His heart rate slowed. His thoughts, once tangled and frantic, began to untangle. From there, he tried yoga for stress relief. Not to get fit, just to move, to feel his body stretch and release the tension it had held onto for months. Each movement whispered, "You're safe now. You don't have to fight." That was new for Tortoise. He'd always lived in fight or flight mode. Constant deadlines, non-stop expectations, internal pressure. But now, he is learning to exist in a state of calm. He started reading about mental wellness routines and found that even simple rituals, like sipping tea without multitasking or taking screen-free evenings, could reset the nervous system. He adopted a new mantra. If it costs my peace, it's too expensive. That one stuck. He stopped saying yes out of guilt. Stopped apologizing for resting. Stopped overcommitting just to feel valuable. Because the truth is, your worth isn't tied to your productivity. Your value isn't measured in how much you do, but in how well you take care of you. Took Tortoise a while to believe that. But every time he chose self-care over burnout, he reclaimed a little more of himself. And then something beautiful happened. He started to feel joy again. Not the loud kind, but a soft, steady kind of joy. The kind that rises in your chest when you're present. When you're okay. When you're not bracing for the next collapse. His friends noticed. "You look lighter," Rabbit said one day. "I feel like me again," Tortoise smiled. And it wasn't just a feeling, it was backed by change. Because when you commit to emotional recovery, you start showing up differently. More aligned, more whole. Tortoise had always thought self-care was selfish. But now he saw the truth. Self-care is survival. It's what lets you show up for the world without losing yourself in the process. And here's something every high achiever needs to hear. You don't have to burn out to be valuable. You don't have to be exhausted to be enough. You don't need to prove your worth by suffering. Tortoise was learning to trust that. So he built a routine, not rigid, not overwhelming, but a rhythm of peace. And his self-care starter kit. Morning breathwork for mental clarity. Movement, stretching, yoga, or walking to release tension. Journaling for anxiety relief. To process emotions, not suppress them. Digital detox evenings, no screens after sunset. Gratitude reflection, a simple list of 3 things he was thankful for. Boundaries, protecting his time, energy, and rest. None of it was dramatic. None of it was expensive. But together, it became his anchor. Burnout had taught him something powerful. You can't wait until you're broken to start taking care of yourself. And self-care? It wasn't a trend. It was a lifestyle, one rooted in sustainability, emotional intelligence, and personal freedom. As the days passed, Tortoise felt himself returning. More focus, more energy, more peace. And the best part? He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was thriving. It sounds simple, doesn't it? But for Tortoise, balance had always been a myth. A motivational poster. A concept reserved for monks and minimalists. That was before burnout. Now, balance had a whole new meaning, survival. Because after hitting emotional rock bottom, he knew something had to give way. He couldn't go back to that old life of endless grind, ignoring the warning signs, pushing through the pain. So he made a decision. From now on, he was going to build a life that didn't need an escape. And that meant learning something most high achievers struggle with. Work-life balance isn't a luxury. It's a mental health strategy. But here's the truth no one tells you. Balance doesn't happen by accident. It takes intentionality, boundaries, and a whole lot of unlearning. Tortoise started by identifying what was draining him. Was it the non-stop notifications? The pressure to be on 24/7? The guilt of resting while others hustled? Yes, yes, and yes. So he made a list, his drains and gains list. Drains were anything that depleted his energy. Overcommitting, skipping meals to meet deadlines, saying yes to things out of guilt, comparing his journey to others, working late just to feel productive. Gains were the things that restored him, daily breaks to breathe and reset, connecting with people who energized him, having evenings with zero obligations, doing things that had no productivity outcome, just joy, prioritizing mental clarity over external applause. It was simple, really, but powerful, because mental health isn't always about dramatic shifts. It's about tiny choices that protect your peace. Tortoise also learned one of the most underrated skills in the self-care world, boundary setting. At first, he thought boundaries meant walls. But in truth, boundaries are bridges. They connect you to what matters most, while keeping you out of what doesn't serve your well-being. He started small. He created a no email before breakfast rule. He stopped taking calls after 7 p.m. He learned how to say, "I'd love to, but I don't have the capacity right now." And guess what? The world didn't end. No one disowned him. No job collapsed. No opportunity disappeared. In fact, something incredible happened. He became more respected, more effective, more at peace. Because when you protect your energy, people notice. And here's a golden truth he discovered. Work-life balance is about integration, not perfection. You're not aiming to split time 50-50, you're creating harmony between who you are, what you do, and what you need. So Tortoise began to redesign his lifestyle from the inside out. He blocked out time each week for restorative routines, not as a reward, but as a requirement. He redefined success not as constant output, but as aligned living. He asked himself daily, am I honoring my energy today? Is this decision aligned with my peace? Will this add to my life or take away from it? And as he lived into these questions, he noticed something powerful. His emotional resilience skyrocketed. Challenges still came. Life wasn't magically easier, but he handled them differently, with grace, with calm, with clarity. Because when you're balanced, you're not just reacting, you're responding. There's a difference. One drains you, the other empowers you. Tortoise started helping others too, sharing his story, his self-care tools, his daily practices, because he knew he wasn't alone. Burnout is a silent epidemic, and balance is the medicine we all forget we need until our body forces us to remember. He spoke about holistic well-being, not just physical health, but mental, emotional, and spiritual wholeness. He led a small circle with his friends each week. They'd gather to check in. No pressure, just honesty, just support. They talked about emotional fatigue, digital boundaries, purpose over performance, sustainable habits, authentic rest. It became a sacred space, a lifeline, a reminder that we're not built to do life alone, or to burn ourselves out trying to impress people who won't visit us in the hospital. Tortoise was becoming someone new, not just healed, but whole. And that's the power of balance. When you protect your peace, you unlock your purpose. When you slow down, you speed up your healing. When you say no to burnout, you say yes to life. By the end of that month, his days looked different. Not less ambitious, just more intentional. He still worked, but from a place of clarity, not chaos. He still dreamed, but from a place of joy, not fear. He still showed up, but not at the cost of his health. And most importantly, he smiled more, because balance doesn't mean you have it all figured out. It just means you're finally living from the inside out, not the other way around. Tortoise had come a long way, from burnout to balance, from emotional exhaustion to energized purpose. But the real question is not, can I recover? It is, can I sustain this? Because healing isn't a one-time event. It's a lifestyle shift. And Tortoise knew, the greatest threat to long-term well-being isn't chaos. It is comfort. When things get better, we forget why we started. We slip. We stop doing the very things that saved us. But this time, Tortoise was ready. He knew his nervous system had been through trauma. Chronic stress, anxiety loops, burnout cycles, it all left scars. So instead of chasing perfection, he focused on sustainable wellness. That meant integrating daily mental health rituals, the small, consistent habits that made the biggest impact on his emotional stamina. A morning stillness practice to set the tone for his day. Digital detox blocks to prevent information overload. Weekly mental health check-ins. Just him, his journal, and radical honesty. Nature walks. Unhurried meals. Deep breathing before big decisions. These weren't trends. They were tools, his personal resilience kit. And every time life tried to pull him back into the grind, he had a powerful mantra to guide him. I protect my peace like it's my most valuable asset. Because it is. He also made peace with something difficult. Success without alignment isn't success at all. So he stopped saying yes to anything that didn't align with his energy, values, or mental health. This wasn't selfish, it was self-honoring. Because true success isn't just money, milestones, or applause. It's the quiet joy of waking up and feeling at peace with your life. Tortoise also invested in something many overlook. Relapse prevention for burnout. Yep, just like any recovery, burnout has a relapse curve. So he created his own burnout prevention blueprint. 1. Track your triggers. He knew what made him spiral. People-pleasing, saying yes to too much, lack of sleep, skipping meals, comparison loops. So he monitored his mental load like a blood pressure gauge. 2. Recommit weekly. Every Sunday he asked himself, am I still aligned? Did I rest or just recover from the week? Is my energy going toward what matters? 3. Have an exit plan. For every major commitment, he made a mental exit route. If this drains me, how will I step back gracefully without guilt? 4. Anchor to joy. He made sure every week had something he looked forward to, not for productivity, just for pleasure. That's how he kept his soul full. 5. Community check-ins. He didn't isolate. He had 2 trusted friends who knew his burnout triggers and weren't afraid to call him out gently when they saw the warning signs return. That was the difference. Burnout no longer snuck up on him. He anticipated it, prepared for it, defended against it, because emotional resilience isn't luck, it's strategy. And as the months passed, something wild happened. He became the calmest animal in the forest, not because he had less stress, but because he had more inner structure. His mind was no longer cluttered with guilt. His calendar was no longer packed with pressure. His energy was no longer for sale to the highest bidder. He was living in lifestyle alignment, and that's the most powerful mental health tool of all. Alignment equals less anxiety. Alignment equals deeper sleep. Alignment equals more energy for your real dreams. Tortoise also started mentoring others. People came to him not for productivity hacks, but for peace strategies. They wanted what he had: calm confidence, high performance with soul, emotional clarity, consistent joy, mental health boundaries that didn't feel like walls. And he shared everything freely, because he knew in a world addicted to hustle, rest is radical. Boundaries are bravery, and emotional well-being is the new wealth. So when you saw Tortoise now, he looked different. Sure, he still had big dreams. He still worked hard. He still chased impact. But he also had space. For breath, for stillness, for play, for connection, for reflection. Because what he learned through burnout wasn't just how to slow down. It was how to live fully. And the truth is, that's all any of us really want. to live a life we don't need to escape from, to wake up well in mind, in body, in spirit, to succeed without sacrificing our sanity. And as Tortoise stood at the edge of his new chapter, he smiled. Not because everything was perfect, but because he is finally whole. And that is the win that mattered most. If this story resonates with you, kindly hit the subscribe or the follow button for more fables that blend ancient wisdom with modern struggles. Leave a comment below. Don't forget to like this video, share it, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next story. Thanks for watching.